Many companies that say that they do distributed and remote work, they actually still have a very HQ-centric worldview. So that means that leadership is in HQ, strategy is formed in HQ, high-impact jobs are in the HQ as well. So when they hire remote and distributed teams, say for example in the Philippines, in Brazil, in India, they use this more as back office functions. So you have very talented people who join them there, right? Thinking that they could rise in a global company, but very soon they find that they hit a glass ceiling and they're no longer able to advance, and so they move on to another firm. I think that that's a massive waste of talent, especially if you're talking about here in Asia. This is the world's fastest growing region. People are ambitious. People are bright. They are able to take on a leadership position if they are given the opportunity to. So this is one thing that we've really tried to reverse at Esevel. You do not have to be at HQ in order to rise into a leadership position. As long as you perform your job and you perform it well, we look at performance more than location. So I think that that is one thing that has to shift. HQ shouldn't be a location. HQ should actually be a mindset. And I think that's something that a lot of remote companies or distributed work companies have it correct when it comes to that.
Welcome to Analyse Asia, the premier podcast dedicating to dissecting the pulse of business, technology, and media in this region. I'm Yana Fry, the founder of Yana TV, and today I'm guest hosting for Bernard Leong. And our topic for today, remote workplace management in Asia Pacific, a very challenging topic that became mission critical as companies embrace hybrid and distributed team. And my guest today is Yuying Deng, who is the co-founder and CEO of Esevel, a fast-raising SaaS startup helping company scale their remote operations across the region. And yes, she also happens to be Bernard's spouse. That's why I'm interviewing her today. Yuying, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Yana.
You have had such a fascinating journey from law to healthcare to giving birth to 3 children to starting and now moving overhead with 2 startups.
Yes, I've been busy.
Very busy, clearly. What were the key turning points that you feel shaped you as the founder you are today? Let's just go straight to it.
All right. So I think that, I've had a very circuitous kind of path, as you mentioned, like going from a lawyer to an operator to being now a founder. I think the key turning points for me was when I was in law. I actually felt a disconnect between what I was doing, even though I was learning a lot, and the actual impact of my work. So
why is that?
I felt that, I was doing a lot of IPOs, a lot of M&As throughout different countries. So I was based in Hong Kong, I was a registered lawyer there, and then China and London. But I felt that there was a disconnect because I felt like I was watching from the sidelines when I actually wanted to be in the field itself playing, right? I was advising businesses, but I was always constantly thinking, what would it be like if I were to do things the other way around and build a business from the ground up? So I think that was one of the key turning points during the financial crisis that happened. And, seeing how the law firms reacted to it and made me wonder, what would it be like to actually build a business from the ground up with this kind of realities happening around me?
And that's why you started your 2 businesses.
Yeah, so it actually took a longer path than that. That was when I decided to do my MBA at INSEAD, and that really gave me a very good grounding in entrepreneurship and also in operations as well. Post-MBA, I then joined my family's business. So we were running the largest chain of private nursing homes here in Singapore. I helped them to build up the community care division and then get it sold to a private equity firm. And then I founded my first startup. So that was how it happened.
So we're talking about the Orange Valley Nursing Homes,
yes,
your family
correct.
business. And
yes.
I know that you played a pivotal role when you actually helped it to exit into the private equity.
Yes.
So what were your biggest experiences there and learnings about strategy, negotiation, and just managing stakeholder expectations and also just working in a family office?
Oh, yes. I mean, working in a family business, I think as any second-gen kind of entrepreneur would tell you, it's difficult, right? You have to manage family dynamics and, that can spill over from work into family life after dinner as well. I think we managed that quite well. And in terms of what I actually learned from the exit into PE, I think it was really a lot of negotiations, a lot of attention to detail, and also a lot of things about strategy as well, because it wasn't an easy or straightforward kind of exit. There was some complexities behind it.
Like there always there are.
Yes. So it was a process that actually took us 1.5 years to complete. And that also taught me a lot about managing expectations from people, whether these are other shareholders, minority shareholders, majority shareholders, and so on. And also learning about the interests that different people have as well. Some of which may be explicitly stated, but a lot of which you have to understand from like the dynamics that's happening. So very useful lesson, and kind of mini MBA, if you would.
In real life.
In real life.
Which brings us to Esevel. And for those who are unfamiliar with the company, can you just tell us what Esevel, what are the hidden pains and problems you are solving for companies across Asia?
Sure. So Esevel, I would describe it as a scalable IT operations platform. So you can think of us as IT as a services for distributed teams. So what we've done is that actually we've built up an infrastructure on which companies can tap on to manage IT for their distributed teams throughout 88 countries in the world. So our services, is put into a platform, and it comprises of a few parts. It includes things like IT asset management throughout all these countries, procurement, provisioning, deprovisioning, security, SLA, guaranteed kind of help desk as well. And we have basically invested heavily in building an infrastructure that spans things like partners, local sourcing, and repair facilitation, anything that you can think of, right? SLA, security for IT, that companies can tap into. So it is IT as a service, but you could tap into it as a startup and basically almost have like the global might of like a Fortune 500 global IT support behind you, but without the overheads of paying for one.
An interesting fact about Esevel that people might not know, that the company was founded in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic in Singapore, where many companies were actually shutting down.
Yes.
Tell me why.
In April itself.
Tell me why.
So I think Esevel is like really one of those things that came about like when we became aware of the problems that were happening. I'm sure as you know as well, Yana, because you also lived through the pandemic, right? And you've seen what things were like. Offices were shutting down, people required to work from home, and immediately IT departments worldwide, they were panicking. Like, how do I get laptops to my people? Like when they have to work from home, like everything's on the desktop, it's tethered to the office desk. How do I make sure my people are productive? So that was when we first became aware of the problems that would originate with distributed teams and remote teams. So when we saw that, we saw the opportunities that was there to solve the problem that was happening. We decided to incorporate the company straight away.
And how do you feel that the fact that it was incorporated during the time in the pandemic actually shaped the company DNA?
I think that had a lot of impact on the company. I mean, one of the impact is more internal. So we are a fully remote company ourselves, right? And we employ people throughout 8 different countries here in the Asia Pacific. And very soon we'll be hiring people in other regions in the world. So it shaped us internally. It made us realize that there were actually a very large global talent pool worldwide as we hired these people, and we saw how capable all of them were. And we also understood that then the culture of a company, like a remote company, has to be built very deliberately and intentionally from the ground up. But I think the other thing that it taught us as well, coming from the pandemic, was that how important it was to be close to the problem, right? Because we were talking to IT people every day, we were understanding their pain points. And so that is one of the things that has really differed from how I built Esevel compared to my previous startup. We always want to be very close to the problem so that we understand exactly what it is that, our clients need, what is the next step up that they want, like what are the pain points that they actually want us to fulfill.
You say it's very important to build the culture of the company. So how do you do that?
It is not easy.
Especially given that your company is so diverse.
Yes, it is. I mean, we have people from, I would say, 6 different countries, right?
Spanning but you're operating in 88 countries, would it be correct?
We are operating
in 88
countries.
So you employ from about 6 countries, but you're operating in 88 countries.
Yes.
It means you are dealing with customers in 88 countries.
Yes, we are dealing with end users in 88 different countries. But our customers, thankfully, are from countries usually like the US, UK, Europe, Australia, Singapore. So they tend to be more commonalities between them than differences. Our end users are in 88 different countries, but then again, they're usually English-speaking professionals in those countries. So again, like a lot of commonalities. But where the cultural differences really comes in is in terms of like the partnerships that we form and the infrastructure that we're building up to enable us to service all these countries worldwide. So it is there that we have to learn, the language differences, the operational nuances, like the different speed at which people move, like in different countries.
Give me an example.
I would say, it's definitely very different in Europe, right, as compared to like somewhere in China, as compared to someone in Brazil. So people move at very different speeds and they have different expectations and understandings. But it's fascinating.
Clearly.
Yes.
And it looks like you are doing a great job with this.
I hope so.
I know that Esevel supports companies like Xendit and GetGo. Could you share a story that illustrates to us how your platform helps these companies distribute the work that truly matters?
So, those are not the only companies that we have.
Those are the ones we can mention on air, by the way.
Yes. We do have a lot of companies that we're not able to mention by name due to NDAs. So how we usually help them is twofold. One is basically to enable device lifecycle management for their team members who are overseas. So you can imagine, Yana, one day if you were to set up a company that has like about 2,000 different employees, you have your HQ in one place, but distributed teams, back office support in maybe 5 to 6 other countries worldwide. Very, very common kind of structure nowadays. You would struggle. Your IT team would be struggling to get them devices to make sure that, they can properly onboard and offboard people in an expedient kind of manner, according to what HR says, right? If you're someone onboarding on Monday, that person needs to receive a laptop on Monday. Otherwise, they would be not productive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so those are the things that we help to ensure. And we also help to ensure the security of like data while the laptop is being there used by a person in a different country as well. So that's one aspect of what we do. The other aspect of what we do is that we enable them to also then, not just do device lifecycle management, but the security management of those devices while they're overseas. So to make sure that the laptops are properly updated with the latest OS, the patches, that you can remote lock and wipe if you have a bad lever or if someone loses the laptops, right? So all these are important things for compliance, for ISO standards, and so on.
Looking at your years of entrepreneurship and all the ups and downs, highs and lows, what do you feel are the hardest earned lessons that you wish you knew before you started? It's one of those tough questions.
Yes, I know. I'm thinking hard when you say that. I think I used to be very affected by failure, right? And I think like after having gone through one failure with my first startup and now having more success with the second one, what I've come to realize is that in entrepreneurship, failure is not a bug, it's actually a feature of the process, right? So, that was one of the hard-earned lessons that I had, that not to be so affected by something going wrong in the earlier stages, right? But to know that this kind of like obstacle, this kind of challenge actually gives you resilience and clarity that helps you improve on like any second iteration of what you're doing.
We were mentioning that you were working with your family business, right?
Yes.
The Orange Valley Nursing. So how do you feel that your experience working in the healthcare and elderly care shaped your resilience and just your values as an entrepreneur and as a founder? What is important to you?
There's one thing I respect a lot about my parents when they started up the company, and that is that they always had the customer at the forefront, right? So everything that they did in terms of like the buildings that they designed, right? The operations that they set up, the people that they hired in, everything was done from the viewpoint of the customer. Is this the best for the customer? Is this what is going to give the customer the best results in terms of healthcare? And I think that's something that I really took away from that. And so like having a client first, customer first attitude is always something that we've had at Esevel. The second thing is just about operational complexity. I think as you can imagine, like running a nursing home with like 1,000 beds, a few thousand kind of healthcare workers, and like all the different kind of medication, the procedures, the dressings that you have to do for different people, dealing with like client feedback and all that, very operationally complex and very high stakes. So although what we're doing at Esevel is not high stakes in the way of healthcare, but it's high stakes in the way of, if you have an employee onboarding, that person needs to get a device by Monday, right? So I've learned that not to be afraid of operational complexity, not to be afraid of doing boring work, right? But I think really the best work comes is when you're willing to do boring, like invisible work, day in, day out, and producing a result for your customer at the end of the day that is seamless.
What is the biggest mistake you have made in business as a businesswoman, and what have you learned from that?
I would say that that would hark back to my first startup, where we were building an idea that we had in our minds that we thought would be fantastic. And when we went out to talk to people about it, they gave us feedback. For example, price point is too high, this thing is over-engineered, I need something simpler. We didn't take that feedback to heart, right? So I think it was a lot of resistance and a lot of defensiveness. And, I've learned not to repeat that with my second company. We go where clients want us to go. We go where the market indicates that we should go. Yeah, so that was one of the hardest lessons.
Which I actually find requires a lot of humbleness in leadership. Because sometimes, or very often, when leaders go out, entrepreneurs, they have a brilliant idea and they're like, I'm going to change the world. It's what I want to do. But then to receive feedback and say, it's not what we want, actually, you need to be very humble and accept it. So
yes,
kudos to you for being able to do that.
Because it becomes very personal.
Exactly,
right?
Because it's not they just reject me and my company. They reject also my values or my ideas.
Exactly.
Right? So,
exactly.
Wow.
It took me years to learn that.
I think I'm still learning.
I'm still learning as well, don't get me wrong.
So, looking ahead 3 to 5 years, what is the biggest shift you expect in how Asian companies approach hybrid and remote work?
So I think that hybrid and remote work is here to stay, right? So when companies were doing it post-pandemic or during the pandemic itself, it was more like, how do we get this done? Like, how do we get this done quickly, right? So a lot of things was like done in patchworks. But then what has happened is that I've seen a lot more of a deliberate shift towards companies actually thinking about it. Okay, I'm getting a lot of benefits from remote work, right? Say, for example, if I'm hiring the Philippines and Indonesia, I'm getting employees who are a lot more willing to work for me and to stay because I'm saving them 3 hours a day in terms of transport costs. So it's become a hiring and retention tool. The second thing that we've seen is companies from developed countries, so the US, the UK, Singapore, hiring into developing countries because it's a lot more of an efficient cost base and they get talents over there that would otherwise be very hard for them to hire within their own countries. So there's also that as well. So I think it's definitely here to stay. And I think companies are becoming a lot more intentional about how they are structuring like their own internal operations and their company culture for remote and hybrid work. So part of it is also the infrastructure that has come up. So employer of record companies, which enables you to hire worldwide. IT infrastructure companies like ours that enables you to, support and equip your people worldwide as well. So that also has a part to play in it. So definitely, I think here in Asia, remote hybrid work is here to stay, but also for the rest of the world.
From your experience, but even just look at the industry, do you feel that organizations doubling down on remote models or they're swinging back towards the office? Like what's actually really happening on the ground right now?
So I feel that there are two aspects of it. One is that some of the companies, I would say the more traditional ones, so the ones like banks, some of the larger tech companies and so on, they still find it because of structures that have already been built up over time. They find it more expedient to call everyone back into the office and not reform, any of the structures that they've had in terms of management, incentives, and so on, right? And of course, there's a short-term gain to that. But I would say the Googles of tomorrow, the Netflixes of tomorrow, the Amazons of tomorrow, a lot of them...
Now we want to know the names. If you know, tell us. We're going to invest in the stocks.
I do. They may not even be listed yet, right? So all these companies, they have already come up with like infrastructures, cultural norms that allows them to recruit and to motivate and to promote people with global talents. So I think that is the way that most companies are going to go in the future. And if you think about it economic-wise, right, these companies are going to have access to a much more global, diverse talent pools, a lot more cost efficiencies than, the older players of the past. So I do think that the world is moving towards this direction.
What's one thing you know about managing distributed workplaces and workforces in Asia that few people do, but they should know about it? Tell us the secret.
I do think I've observed one thing, and that is many companies that, say that they do distributed and remote work, they actually still have a very HQ-centric worldview. So that means that leadership is in HQ, strategy is formed in HQ, high-impact jobs are in the HQ as well. So when they hire remote and distributed teams, say, for example, in the Philippines, in Brazil, in India, they use this more as back office functions. So you have very talented people who join them there, right? Thinking that they could rise in a global company, but very soon they find that they hit a glass ceiling and they're no longer able to advance. And so they move on to another firm. I think that that's a massive waste of talent, especially if you're talking about here in Asia. This is the world's fastest growing region. People are ambitious. People are bright. They are able to take on a leadership position if they are given the opportunity to. So this is one thing that we've really tried to reverse at Esevel. You do not have to be at HQ in order to rise into a leadership position. As long as you perform your job and you perform it well, we look at performance more than location. So I think that that is one thing that has to shift. HQ shouldn't be a location. HQ should actually be a mindset, right? And I think that's something that a lot of remote companies or distributed work companies have it correct when it comes to that.
When you look at those talents that are living across all of those countries around the world, how do you actually realize who is the one that needs to be promoted and put in a leadership position? How do you choose those people? What are their qualities?
So I think for someone to thrive in a kind of remote and distributed environment, it is a different set of characteristics from someone who would thrive in an in-office kind of environment. And I think that is also something that many companies do not realize until they have had some experiences in hiring as well. So someone who would do well in a remote work environment tends to be an independent thinker, a good communicator, right? And they tend to, want to express themselves rather than withhold their own opinions. So whenever we identify people like that, people who meet those characteristics and at the same time are hungry for more, eager to learn, these are the people that we want to promote.
So to me, that sounds like entrepreneurial mindset. So how do you actually keep them working within the company then, if they have actual entrepreneurial mindset? So what motivates them to stay at Esevel?
So I think it's the opportunity, like in a company that's growing fast, right? For them to be doing something very differently in 1 or 2 years' time as compared to what they were doing from before. So there is that whole growth that is happening within the company that motivates them. But I think the second thing is also like the expectations that we set that, hey, it doesn't matter if you're based in Manila or you're in Singapore or you're in San Francisco or you're in like São Paulo in Brazil. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're performing, you're hitting your OKRs, you're meeting your KPIs, right? And you're communicating well with your team members, you are someone that we want to promote into a leadership position.
So speaking about team members and managing teams, people you described sounds very much like very high-end single performers. The type A personalities probably who would, go there, communicate, make it happen. So how do you make sure they work harmoniously in teams with each other when they're all superstars?
So I would say that, as a start, we don't hire lone wolves. So we do not hire like individual performance. So one of the things that we do very rigorously at Esevel is the whole hiring process, the kind of questions that we ask, the reference calls that we do, and the kind of focus questions that we ask them as well. So we look for people who can communicate well because they need to work well within a team. And also one of the things is that we look for people who are part of a team and they should have overlapping time zones, right? So I think that's one of the things that's very often overlooked because if you have someone working in a completely different time zone from you, very difficult to get any work done.
Even if you're a great communicator.
Yes.
I just have to ask right now, so what is your secret question or strategy at hiring since you're so good at it? So now tell us, we all want to know.
I wouldn't say I'm a fantastic hirer. I mean, like definitely.
You're a really good one.
Definitely we've had people, who didn't quite fit and work out as well. But I think that it is really important to follow a set of structure, like in terms of your interview questions, in terms of what you're looking for in the people, and in terms of like, the reference calls that you do. So I do have a book that I follow quite religiously. It's called Who? And, I can't remember the author's name. We can drop it into the footnotes later. But I find it has basically helped me to find good people, even though I was not able to meet those people to interview them face to face.
Very powerful. Little bit just shifting the gears here and focusing on the family. Okay. So I know that you have been often saying that founding a company is like raising a child, and you have 3 of those. So just elaborate a little bit, what do you mean by that?
I think, in a couple of ways. Like first, it does take a village to raise a child. When raising my kids, I'm very fortunate that, my husband helps out a lot, and we have a helper, fortunately here in Singapore, and also my mother helps out a lot as well. So I think it's the same thing with founding a company. And you must also
You
know,
need a mother, a husband, and a helper. I got it. This is the secret.
well, I was going to say, like, you need people beside you to really help you through it. So whether this is like fellow founder friends who can guide you through like experiences that they've been through before, whether it is like friends who are, financiers, right? Or lawyers, people that you can call when you're in a fix and, ask them, how would you sort out something like that? Even I was part of the iterative accelerator, and that was also something that helped me a lot. Just the fact of knowing that there's this community of people that you can go to with questions at any time of the night, and there'll always be someone there to reply you. Because being a founder is a very lonely kind of journey, right? And you need this support network beside you to make it work.
For all other women out there who are just trying to balance family, career, children, perhaps if they want to have them. So what is your advice? How do you feel the best way to do that?
Well, I have actually received like many questions from fellow female founders before, like who have always been concerned, right? Like, when is it the best time to get married? When do I have kids? Would having kids interfere with raising money? What would VCs think, right? Would it interfere with like me getting business and traveling for business and so on? And I think for me, at least personally, like it has always just been, just do it. Because there is, especially for having children, right? Like there is no perfect time to get things done, to get these kind of things done. So if you just do it, you would eventually find a way around it. It is about what is important to you, right? And if this is an important milestone that you want to hit in life, then just go ahead and do it now. Or at least take a step towards getting it done.
Can I ask a personal question?
Yes, please.
Have you ever dealt with mother's guilt? And if yes, how did you deal with that?
All right. Yeah, mother's guilt, plenty of it. So
I think we all have it.
Yes, I do work from home. So, I've had my daughter tell me one day, she said, this was when she was 8 years old. She said, Mommy, do you know what I want to be when I grow up? I said, no. She said, I want to be a housewife. And I was like, why? I was a bit surprised because I was working. I thought I was showing my kids, like, this is an example of like a mother who's working. And she said, I want to be a housewife. And I said, why? Right? And she said, well, so that, when I have a kid and when my kid comes home from school, I could actually pay attention to my kid.
Ouch.
And so that was like a big ouch kind of moment. Because I do lock my door, right? Like,
well, you have to focus.
Yes,
otherwise, how do you focus on work?
Yeah, so there you go, Yana, like a mother's guilt. But how I comfort myself with it.
I'm more interested in that.
Modern snarky teenagers. Yeah, so how I comfort myself with it is that I do believe that, teaching kids to be independent and to have an independent mindset is a very important part of bringing children up. So whenever my children are there like squabbling amongst themselves or, being unhappy that I can't pay attention to them or saying I'm bored, like, can you do something with me? I comfort myself by saying that, well, this is all part of growing up. They have to learn how to deal with it, right? And so that is also part of being a parent as well, teaching them all these life lessons.
Absolutely. Since we're on the topic of children and parents, I'm just curious.
Yes.
What is the biggest lesson that you learned from your mom and from your dad? We want to make sure they listen to the podcast. And if you had this moment when you were a child, when you were saying something like that, now they're like, okay, she got it when she grew up.
I would say, like, looking at the kind of people that they are and, like, looking at how they build up their lives and their businesses, I would say the biggest lesson or the biggest takeaway from them is always to do things that you can sleep with at night, right? So what that means is, you have to do things in a way that's ethical, in a way that you feel is right, and it does right by the people that you're dealing with. So I think that is what they have always done. Like, I've never seen them do something that's inappropriate or said something that was inappropriate about other people, even behind their backs. So that is something that I've taken away, and it's a principle that I hold with me when I build my business as well.
When you think about the next few years, what does great look like for yourself personally, for Esevel, and just, you as a founder and as a mother? Take us on this journey.
All right. So let's deal with the easier part, the company first. So I would say great for Esevel would be where we become a very indispensable tool for companies that are growing globally. So whenever a company is thinking of hiring someone in the UAE, or they're thinking of like offboarding someone in Mexico or onboarding someone in China, immediately who they think of is us. So that's who we want to be, right? In terms of family, what I would say is independence for my children. I think especially in this age of AI, right, where I know that a lot of parents are concerned about how is AI going to affect like jobs for my kids, how is it going to affect like how my kids do their schoolwork and so on. I think for my kids, what success would look like for me as a mother is independent thinking, right, and not just blindly accepting like what society tells you things should be. Independence and independent thinking for them. For me as a founder, I think it would be making Esevel into the reality of what we want the world to be, which is basically if you're a talented person who joins Esevel from any part of the world, you have a chance to rise up to a leadership position in a fast-growing company. It doesn't matter if you're based in Manila, in Shanghai, in São Paulo, right? You have a chance at being a leader in a company that appreciates you for who you are and not where you're based.
I have to ask about your husband, may I?
Please.
There is this.
I hope this is a question I can answer.
Well, it's an appropriate one, not an inappropriate. They say traditionally, they used to say that behind every great man, there is a woman that has been supporting him. I find it now with where the world is going, we can reverse this sentence, reverse engineer that.
Yes.
And we say that next to each great woman, there is a man who is supporting her.
Yes.
So what do you feel then the role your husband has been playing, and in general, your kind of reflections towards other women? What do we want from our men to help us to succeed?
So I think the most important thing that my husband has brought to me is that I know that he also wants me to succeed as well. And I think that's very important for like any sort of partnership, right? I've seen, some relationships where one party may not want the other one to succeed so much because of insecurities that they may have. But it's very different for me and Bernard. Like we both want each other to succeed. And that may mean like sacrifices, right? That we have to make in the short term, like, I have to go out for this business meeting. Will you do the kids like spelling with him kind of thing? And he's always willing to do those kind of things. And I'm also willing to do it for him as well. So it is not something that's easy. And I would say that we have had to really get to this understanding after the first few years of the relationship. But I think we're at this place now where, we know that we're trying to do right by each other.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Before we wrap up, is there a book, a podcast, or a tool that has been recently inspiring you and really helping you to go to the next level, either in business or life?
All right. So I have actually been listening to a podcast called Empire. It's by two historians. And it has been fascinating for me. I mean, first of all, I'm a history buff. I used to do history in high school. But more than that as well, it has shown me about how the world is different and yet always the same, right? It is always about like human nature and how human nature keeps repeating itself, whether this is the Byzantine Empire or whether it's the Mughal Empire or whether it's the Chinese Empire. So when you look at all these different personalities, the mistakes and the successes that keeps repeating itself, it shows you that at the end of the day, like everything revolves around human nature. So that is something that I really, enjoy listening to. Would encourage anyone who even has a bit of interest in history to listen to it as well.
Well, since you like history so much, I just have to ask. So what is your favorite event from the history point of view in terms of what we can learn from that, and how do you feel it can actually help us to build a society we truly want to have?
So I when I look at history, I think I look at it more from personalities, like rather than events, because like that is just a lot more of a captivating subject. So I think one of the things that I've been listening to recently is the founding fathers of the US, right? And how a lot of them actually had to rise through adversities, like I think everyone is familiar with the story now with Hamilton, right? Because of like the musical.
We watched the musical, exactly.
Yes, we all watched the musical, not that we read the book. But it wasn't just Hamilton, it was also George Washington, Thomas Jefferson that actually rose from very adverse kind of situations and brought themselves up to a higher level. So I would say that, the lesson I learned from that is that things are not irreversible. Even though you may have been born or like subjected to very bad circumstances in life, but through sheer will, you should actually be able to rise up to a high level, right? With sufficient amount of luck and sufficient amount of determination.
And the final question before we wrap up for today.
Please.
Let's go all the way forward up to you being 300 years old. And you're
300 years old?
Yes. And you're looking...
You must know about some technology that I haven't heard of yet.
I am sure we will get it in our lifetime.
Okay.
And so you're looking at your life, and what would you like to be most proud of and most happy about at the end of your life?
I think that is something that we ask ourselves, a lot about, right, from time to time. And I think for me, a lot of that, like, honestly, would be my kids, right, and how they've turned out. Because a lot of things you do, it's always asking about, like, why is this thing important to you? Why is this thing important to you, right? So for me, like, fundamentally, be my kids. And, just by knowing that they've turned out to be independent, happy kind of people, like, would be sufficient for me. They do not have to achieve like a certain level of success or
you're not being Asian now, come on.
I think even for Asian parents, that is what they want. It's just that they express it in a different form. Right? I do know, I think for my parents at least, that is what they are happy with. That, okay, on my deathbed, like, I can go knowing that my kids, my descendants are well and they're taken care of and they're happy. Like, that's it.
Well, with that, I have nothing else to ask. I mean, this is like really, it's the final dot. So my only question left, when the audience who wants to connect with you and learn more about Esevel, how they can do that.
Yeah, so if they want to learn more about Esevel, they can come onto our website. It's really easy. So it's Esevel, ESEVEL.com. And if they want to connect with me, really easy as well. My email address, Yuying, YUYING, @esevel.com.
Thank you so much, Yuying. And it was such a powerful conversation on leadership, resilience, AI, motherhood, and dealing with diversity and remote workplaces. And really, really amazing. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. That was Yana Fry from Yana TV. And next week, you're going to see Bernard again in this chair on the show. So make sure you tune in to Analyse Asia.
Thanks, Yana.